Hey folks, so as photographers, we all know that a tripod is a crucial piece of gear for photography. So let's play a game today. It's going to be called Tripod or No Tripod. This is how it works. I'm going to show you 5 shots, and you have to guess whether I used a tripod or no tripod. Now, I'm going to tell you the focal length and shutter speed that I used, so maybe that'll give you a hint. So let's go and check out these 5 shots. And after each one, I'll tell you whether I used a tripod or no tripod. Let's go to shot number 1. This first shot is of a deer. It was taken at 600 millimeters at 1/60th of a second. Very low shutter speed. Did I use a tripod or not? I would say that even after zooming in to 100%, this deer is pretty tack sharp. And the 1/60th shutter speed allowed me to get a fairly low ISO of ISO 560 and not much noise in the background. So that 1/60th of a second shutter speed allowed me to get a lot of light, even though the sun was setting behind the hills. And the answer is no tripod. That's right. You know, with today's vibration reduction systems, I think it's pretty easy to get low shutter speed shots like this, even without a tripod. With animals, it's difficult to get precise framings because they move around a lot. And although tripods are kind of a tool that you can use to get precise framings, in a way, because the animals are moving around and the light changes a lot, I think a tripod is usually, on average, a hindrance. So in shots like this, I don't like using a tripod. I rarely use a tripod, even at 600 millimeters for wildlife, simply because, I think it would slow me down and make me lose a lot more shots than I get otherwise. Granted, I was hand holding, so I did have to take 4 or 5 shots at this shutter speed, not only to get good sharpness, but also to get the right framing because the deer was moving a little bit. Some of the shots taken at 1/60th of a second were motion blurred. A tripod would have helped with that, but then if my camera were on a tripod, it would be too cumbersome to move it around and probably even scare the animal away. So in this case, it was much better to shoot handheld. Let's go to shot number 2. Now we've got a completely different kind of shot, a macro shot of a flower. This one was taken at 90 millimeters with the Tamron 90 millimeter macro lens for the Nikon Z mount, and it was taken at 1/100th of a second. And I like this shot, nice and geometrical, beautiful colors. Did I use a tripod or no tripod? The answer again is no tripod. Now, for macro photography, tripods can sometimes be very helpful because you're always going to have difficulty nailing the exact plane of focus without a tripod compared to with a tripod. Now, that being said, this situation was kind of in a tight area. The flower is growing on a hill. Setting up a tripod would have been cumbersome, and also the flower was swaying a bit in the wind. So using a tripod in this case actually wouldn't have been that useful because the flower was moving anyway. So that stability you get from a tripod would have been kind of negated by the flower moving in the wind. So in this case, again, I just timed it right. I focused on the flower and I just sort of waited until it got in my field of view and hit the shutter button. I think I only took 2 or 3 shots here, and most of them were actually focused on the center of the flower where I wanted it to be focused. So no, again, in this case, a tripod was simply unnecessary, and I think it would have gotten in the way. It was too awkward to use a tripod. Let's go on to shot number 3. All right, we've got a shot here taken at 90 millimeters, 1/200th of a second, and of course, you might have guessed it's a shot of myself. Now, the shutter speed is a little bit deceptive here because I did use a flash. So, tripod or no tripod? In this shot, I used a tripod. Why? Because it's a picture of me. It's at 90 millimeters, and I couldn't have somehow held the camera out and taken a picture of myself with this framing without a tripod. So I put my camera on a tripod, I aimed the camera at some known focus position, and I had to try quite a few times, by the way, but I got this shot of myself. It's a self-portrait. Yeah, basically for self-portraits, a tripod is very useful, I would say necessary, because you want to lock that framing down, and there's just simply no way to hold the camera unless you're using a wide angle lens. And then again, a wide angle lens is pretty terrible for portrait. So 90 millimeter portrait taken on a tripod with flash. Yeah, a tripod is essential in this case. Let's go on to photo number 4. All right, photo number 4 is a sort of landscape-like photograph. taken at 50 millimeters at 1/50th of a second at f2. Tripod or no tripod? In this case, I used a tripod. The answer is tripod. And there's a reason for that. Now, it was taken at ISO 64 at 1/50th of a second. You might think, yeah, this shot is hand-holdable. But in this case, a tripod was essential for me because I wanted an exact framing. I really didn't want to crop this shot. This shot is uncropped, and it's also taken at a very shallow depth of field. Yeah, this shot is taken at a very shallow depth of field. You can see it's taken at f2. I wanted the focus point to be exact. I wanted the framing to be exact. And I wanted to have absolutely no motion blur and use ISO 64 to get maximum image quality. So this shot was taken on a tripod. Yeah, in these cases, when you want exact framing, like landscape photography, you want to use the best shutter speed possible. You want to maximize your image quality. You don't want to crop. A tripod is super useful in situations like this. Essential. If you're doing a lot of landscape photography, tripods are essential. So this one was a tripod. Let's look at photo number 5. Photo number 5 is one of my favorite shots I've ever taken of a Bat Falcon in São Paulo, Brazil. This shot was taken at 500 millimeters, 1/640th of a second, at f5.6, ISO 1100. Tripod or no tripod? This shot was taken without a tripod. There are several reasons for that. Again, like I said, in general, for wildlife, I don't like using a tripod. And the reason why that is because the situations change so rapidly. Animals are very likely to move around. Moving around a big and heavy tripod can disturb birds. And I wanted to get a very exact framing here. Paradoxically, if you want an exact framing in landscapes, it's better to use a tripod. If you want an exact framing in wildlife, it's better, probably on average, not to use a tripod. And as you can see in this photo, there are 2 branches, and there's one branch behind the bird and one branch on which the bird is sitting. Now, I wanted a very nice arrangement of the branch in the back and the branch on which the falcon was sitting. It was also jumping off the branch, diving down, hunting, probably for some swallows or bats or who knows what else. It's called a bat falcon after all. And it was coming back to the branch, and it was landing on a different spot of the branch every time. And there's simply no way a tripod is going to be useful in a situation like this. Besides, there was enough light to shoot at just ISO 1100. Even at 1/640th of a second. Now, usually for perched birds, you can get away with a little bit of a lower shutter speed. But because there was a little bit of wind, the feathers were waving in the wind, it's better to use a higher shutter speed, like 1/640th of a second. And these cameras these days perform great at ISO 1100. There's practically no noise. I didn't use any special noise reduction software on this, just basic denoising and Darktable. Pretty much no noise at ISO 1100, so there's really no reason to use a tripod. Yeah, you may lose a slight amount of image quality, but for actual practical purposes, I don't really think the loss of image quality is really noticeable. In a shot like this, it looks very good. Even if you zoom in at 100%, the image quality is very good. So there's no reason to use a tripod, and I just wanted something that looked very good, and I had to try about 10 different angles to get the exact angle that I wanted. So you see, that's why I didn't use a tripod. There were just too many variables. Setting down a tripod would have been too limiting. So there you go. Tripod or no tripod. For some situations like landscapes and maybe some macro photography sometimes, and of course self-portrait, and for video, I'm filming this on a tripod. Tripods are great, but when I'm doing wildlife photography, I rarely use a tripod. Pretty much never. I think a tripod for me, for my style, because I really want to control the background. I want to control the exact composition, and an animal is moving around a lot. I think a tripod is more of a hindrance almost all the time. So for wildlife, I pretty much never use a tripod. So there you go. Tripod or no tripod? Sometimes tripods are useful, and sometimes they're not. So what do you think? Did you guess which shots used a tripod and which did not? Well, tell me in the comments. I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you again next time.